South Africa has seen an increase in kidnappings. Statistics South Africa's 2022-2023 report has indicated that there has been more than 15,000 cases reported. Gauteng Province is the hotspot, recording most of the incidents, over 7,000 kidnappings. That is followed by KwaZulu-Natal with more than 3,000. The World Population Review has also ranked South Africa as the 6th country with the highest rates of kidnapping in the world. To talk more about this, we are joined virtually by Willem Els, Senior Training Coordinator for ENACT Programme at the Institute for Security Studies. Willem, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Well, good morning to you.
So, without a shadow of a doubt, I mean, we start seeing these stories coming up more and more. In the past couple of years, kidnappings in South Africa have seen daily increases. What's going on? Why the upsurge in this?
You're so right, Leanne. You know, over the last decade, it spiked by about 260% in South Africa alone. We saw in the last quarter, they reported more than 4,500 kidnappings in South Africa alone. And we should see that against the backdrop of if we look at the transnational organized crime index for Africa, we are rated number 3 in Africa, but we're also rated number 7 in the world in terms of organized crimes that is prevalent in the country. And our crime statistics actually reflects that.
And that is very worrying, because it is appearing, and through all of the reports we're reading, is that these kidnappings have now become a quick, fast way of making money. Obviously, we're in a very difficult phase in our economy, and these criminals are always looking for new ways to try and make money. And kidnapping seems to be a way that they're resorting to.
Yes, and you know, it's money, it's big money, and it's also quick money that these people are making. And we also see that these syndicates, the more successful they are, the more brazen they become. But also what we noticed is that you've got these syndicates that operate, and then you've got syndicates that actually copycat. They see how successful these syndicates are, and then they copycat them. So it is just escalating by the day, where these syndicates are multiplying and actually overwhelming the police because of limited resources.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at some of the figures, and I just from reading, I was seeing that they're saying that about 50 kidnappings a day. Are those the numbers we're looking at here in South Africa?
That is what we're looking at, and what is very alarming, according to Stats SA, 85% of those kidnappings are women and children.
Sure. So how do they work? Because we've got these kidnappings, they're happening. Obviously, these ransom-linked abductions, and the victim is then being taken. What is happening in terms of the country's response to this and interventions that are available for us?
Yeah, well, in the first place, you know, they don't call it organized crime for nothing. These groups are very organized. They really do their homework. We see that, especially some of the kidnappings where people receive payments for the accident fund, for instance. And the day that they receive the money, they are abducted, and then the ransom money is asked exactly for that amount that was paid out to them. So we see that there's a complicity from within the system, and these groups have got their tentacles where they are compromising actors, and in the state especially, where they then work with them. We also see that they are preying on businessmen. They're also preying on children, school children, as has happened in March, for instance, in Hartbeespoort, where they kidnapped the 2 school children, and they asked for the ransom. Fortunately, they managed to locate the children, and unfortunately, one of the kidnappers was identified as a police officer. So that makes it very difficult, because that undermines the trust of the public in the police in order to report these things to the police. So we believe that a very big amount of these type of kidnappings are actually underreported.
Yeah.
So that is on the one hand. And on the other hand, with the police, we see that the police started to work proactively. They established kidnapping task teams in every province where they gathered multidisciplinary members with different skills that are complementing their work, but they are overwhelmed due to the sheer number of crime.
Yeah. So what do we do in an instance like this? Because obviously there's a difference between express and ransom kidnappings. And perhaps you need to give us the differentiation between this. How does it work? How do these categories work?
Yeah, ransom kidnapping is when these organized gangs do their homework and they target wealthy business people. They target children or family of wealthy people, and then they kidnap them, and from there then they ask for ransom. One of the first things they warn them that if they contact the police, that they will harm or kill these people, threatening these people. That is your kidnapping for ransom. But we saw a trend that is really rising very steeply all over the country is your express kidnapping, as you mentioned, and that is where you are being hijacked. You're driving in your vehicle. Of course, hijackings, car hijackings is also spiking, and then they force you to go to an ATM and to clear your account. That's the one modus operandi. The other one is that they take you to a remote location, and then they take your phone and go in on your app. They force you to provide them with all the credentials or all the passwords, and then they clear out your account. So that is your express kidnapping. In some cases, these people are being killed. In other cases, they just release them after they got the money.
Yeah, I mean, we look at the children that you referred to, and I mean, some have still never been found, and I bring up the reference of the little Jocelyn story. I mean, we still have no information there. You know, these are the kind of stories we're dealing with, where they literally disappear off the face of the earth, and we actually look for motives, because if that was a ransom, it certainly hasn't been paid, and this little girl is nowhere to be found.
Yes, according to our studies, you know, your human trafficking plays a very big role in these kidnapping syndicates. So what they do, and that also, for that matter, your drug syndicates, they go hand in hand. So what happens with these children and these ladies, especially, they are being kidnapped, and then they are trafficked, and more often as sex workers. Yeah. So that is why they smuggle them out of the country, and then they control them, and we never hear from them again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also remembering now the story of the UDM deputy president, I mean, who was kidnapped. Hours later, however, I believe a ransom was paid and he was released. So this was Deputy President Kwankwa of the UDM. That was a very big story. They spoke about it, but then he was released after the money was paid. Now, there we're in a double-edged sword situation, because it's showing, if you do pay the ransom, that this kidnapping pays. It is a good crime. But if you don't know what's going to happen to your loved one. And we find ourselves in very difficult situations. So what do you advise people to do? I mean, you've also told us that there's situations where the police are involved in all of this. So what do we do as South Africans? How do we handle this spike in kidnappings?
Well, and I think it's a catch-22 situation that we are in due to all the reasons that you just mentioned. So what we will have to do, you will have to actually go case by case and evaluate it. Of course, the first thing that you want to do is you want to trust the police. The police have got well-trained members that can do negotiations. They got specialized police units that actually deal with this. To take the police into your confidence and move forward and work with that is one of the options. But we see that people, especially the people that can afford it, they rather pay the ransom money because of fear of the safety of their relatives. And then, as you mentioned, then crime pays at the end of the day.
However, when you read a little further, the police are saying the moment you pay that ransom, that's it. The case goes cold, and they stop investigating. So, how do you ever get to the bottom of this? Because there's now a situation where these people are getting away with it. So, yeah, again, I'm struggling because emotionally I think to myself, if I'm in that position, the first thing I do is I would want to pay whatever they want just to get my loved one back safely. But at the end of the day, it's the wrong thing to do because these guys are going to continue doing this so they can make that quick buck.
Yeah, you're feeling it. And unfortunately, as I mentioned, the police is overwhelmed at the moment. And that is why it is now the ideal opportunity for the police. We're going to get a new minister, most probably a new national commissioner. We're going to have an opportunity to revamp, to reinvest, and to reprioritize the police. And what is actually needed here in the first place, we have to strengthen our crime intelligence, that we can act proactively, and then also we should enhance our investigative capacity in order to not allow these cases to go cold, but to link these cases, because most often these cases are linked in some way, and then to bring these perpetrators to court. Because at the end of the day, that is the best deterrence for these type of crimes.
Another issue is when you do go to a police station and you report this, many times they turn you away and say, have they been gone for 24 hours? And you say, no, they haven't. They say, no, well then, come back when they are gone for 24 hours. But those 24 hours, I can imagine, are the most important and vital hours to start searching. Help me understand this theory of not reporting with, because if I know if my husband or my child doesn't come home in 24 hours, yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people agreeing with me, there's no way that would happen, and there definitely is a problem. Talk to me about that ruling.
Yeah, that ruling in the police, and I think many of your young policemen in the police stations are confusing this, because that 24-hour rule is when it's a missing person. That is if someone disappeared, you don't know where they are, there's been no communication, and you're looking for them. That is when the police say, okay, let's wait for 24 hours, maybe there's some reason that they've been delayed, and they will come back, and then we will activate our resources in order to look to that. But when you've got a kidnap or ransom case where there's been communication from the syndicates, then they should act immediately. Then that 24-hour rule does not apply.
But do these guys that kidnap, will they be in touch with you straight away? Because there are cases sometimes where they make you panic for a good couple of days, and then you suddenly start getting contacted. So I suppose there is that line we need to distinguish between. If somebody's being kidnapped, you don't get ransoms within the first 48 hours, let's say, then they do contact you. So how would the police then say, no, well, they haven't contacted you, so this is just a missing person?
Yeah, that is why I said that it needs to be dealt with case by case.
Definitely. It sounds like it.
It needs to change.
Sorry, Willem, I'm interrupting you. Please carry on.
Sorry. Yeah, it needs to change, and that is the way you need that leadership at station level, especially if you've got an area. If you look at your hotspots, 23 of the 30 hotspots that have been declared by the police where kidnapping cases are rampant are in Gauteng area. And that station commissioners should prioritize that, and they should also come up with some additional training and briefing of their members, and they should be able to have senior members and experienced members to deal with cases like this, where they can evaluate this case, really talk to the locals, to the complainants, and assess every case by case in order to find out, because a seasoned police officer will pick up a lot of things that you might not pick up because they've been dealing with this type of cases for a while. So that is one of the solutions that we can look at when you do that. Because at the end of the day, these criminals are opportunistic. They also look at the news. They learn from their mistakes. They also learn from where they did very good things, and where something worked for them, and then they will continue with that. And then they develop a modus operandi. So if you work with a syndicate, for instance, their modus operandi will quickly be established, because they will base it on what works for them, and also what is the safest and the easiest way out for them.
Yeah, and also, of course, being aware, because there certainly is a modus operandi that they're working on, and they're watching you, they're following you. Perhaps be a little bit better in terms of sharing your life in public on social media. I mean, are those some of the things that we can, as individuals, put in place to try and protect ourselves? Sorry, Willem, I know we've got to be very quick on this. I've got to end this interview.
Okay, no, it is what you say. We have to be very careful, especially with social media. These groups do their homework, and we have to be to be on our guard. You know, we live in a violent society every day, not with kidnappings alone, and we must be street smart in order to safeguard ourselves.
Willem, thank you. Thanks very much for talking to us. Willem Els is a senior training coordinator for ENACT Programme at the Institute for Security Studies, talking about very concerning increases in kidnappings in South Africa. In fact, over 50 kidnappings a day are happening.